Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you could all join me. I know there's still people trickling in. And I know we're at that marker. I'm on the East Coast, so hour before lunch. So I want to make something fun, entertaining. My name is Manuel Quintana. I want to make sure we're getting to the point of people getting hangry. So I got to entertain. But today it's all about Power BI, which is good because that was the 44%er for wanting to see more of. And if you haven't, we did have the question of whether this is going to be available. And yes, all of our webinars are available on our website. So we've got tons of stuff on Power BI before. But trust me, we'll be doing much more in the future. Myself, I'm here, part of the actual training team itself, underneath Devin Knight, work with Mitchell Pearson, Nick Lee. Last week, if you joined us, Daniel Stratiff did a presentation on Introduction to Flow, which is actually something that I will be referencing later on, just because you're going to see we touch a little bit of flow today, but it's not a focus. So if you want to learn more about it, check out last week's webinar. But I do training, either recorded content live, like we're doing today, and do a little bit of traveling with it, which is fun. It's fun stuff. My goal, of course, this year is to be involved with the community, do some authoring of books, and get myself to that point to be a SQL Server MVP. So working towards it, just got to have goals in life. In the world of BI, of course, keeping up to date, everything's always changing. We're talking about Power BI today. We're going to see Flow, Azure. These are ever-changing topics and subjects. It is breakneck speed, all right? To stay up to date, you got to be on that social media, know what got put out today, tomorrow. It's fun, it's fast. I should update this slide, though, because I also actually recently published a book alongside Devin Knight and Brian and Mitchell Pearson. It's a Microsoft Quick Start Guide to Power BI. So you can find that on Amazon anywhere. So there is a little book there, too, if you want to enjoy that novelty. Also, you can see my information here. We do have all of our details are kind of kept on the website, but Twitter handle, email address, my blog site. So I'm going to follow this up with a blog, too. Even though you'll have this video for download, I'll create a blog around this also. So, of course, this is all about, even though we have the term, it's Power BI streaming datasets, we're talking about real-time datasets, only because it's kind of a synonymous term that's used. And as you can see here, just a quick little display of what we're going to be creating, just a little dashboard. But that's the purpose. That's the idea behind creating a real-time dataset. And we're going to see there's options for us, and we're going to focus on one particular option, and I'll explain the pros and cons. But it's all about giving us the capability. Now, this does differ for those who are familiar with Power BI. There's a lot of terms. That's probably why there's a 44% wanting to see more, because there's tons. There's the idea of connecting to sources, and there's ideas of something called data live connection and direct query. It's a little bit different here. These are actually going to be something we create in the service itself, a real-time data set in which on the dashboard, the tiles are automatically or updated in real time. And you can do it from a ton of different things. And we're going to see there's multiple choices we have that lend themselves nicely to different types of metrics, how we want to view it. So like we see here, different sources. You can monitor temperature of your machines. You can monitor usage on a website. These are things that are very quick, and maybe you don't need historical data. In ours, we are going to use it. We're going to do some social media stuff, some capturing of data, and we do want historical information. That's going to drive us in a very particular direction. And these are the three I talked about. We can see from left to right, push data sets, streaming data sets, and what is known as PubNub. We are going to emphasize and we are going to focus on the push data set, and there's various reasons why. So we can see just kind of a breakdown, and this is something I'm going to have on my blog so you can have it and consume it at a more leisurely pace. But for our push data type, the idea is basically information gets pushed into the data set that we're going to create, so it's something we're going to have to do, and that then automatically updates the tiles that we have on our dashboard, which are fed from these respective fields. So if you're a little bit familiar with Power BI, usually your reports, you need to schedule a refresh. That's where the direct query and live connection kind of alters that. But for the dashboard tiles, this is unaffected by that. Any dashboard tile that is powered by or leveraging this push real-time data set is going to have this capability of just updating live, which is great. And the historical piece is fantastic, and that's why I like using this specific type of the real-time data set, because when we create this, it actually in the background in the Power BI Cloud service creates a database. And with a database, that means it retains and stores history, which a lot of us like to use. And because there's a database, we could take advantage of all of the visuals that are at our disposal within Power BI. When using either the PubNub or the Azure streaming dataset, you actually cannot leverage the traditional visuals. You can see that's kind of listed right here in the center line. They can only use what's going to be known as a custom streaming tile in the dashboard. So, and it makes sense because no database is created for them. You can see data is permanently stored in this little section here. Nothing is done there. This one right here, as far as the Azure streaming data set, it has a cache which holds onto data within the hour. So it's kind of that active monitoring within that period of time, versus PubNub uses kind of a different underlying service entirely. But we won't be focusing on streaming or PubNub. We're going to be all about the push data sets. And I've also included some other kind of considerations here at the bottom. When we leverage this feature, there's an option for using a dashboard. You can pin a live page to a dashboard. That can't be used. Basically, it kind of is counterintuitive to the idea. The live refreshing of those dashboard tiles does not occur if you use pin live page. So you have to pin individual visuals. I'll showcase that if that's unfamiliar. But also it should be noted that Q&A is fully functional with this too, which is an awesome kind of feature that's already built into dashboards. This still allows you to leverage and take advantage of that. So like I said, a pretty good, quick little table here that shows the pros and cons. Yes, I wouldn't say pros and cons per se for all of this, but just the yeses and nos for the feature capabilities within there. In the push, we hit more limitations here at the bottom when we see ingestion and throughput. Because we do have a database that we're writing to, there's going to be limitations there, just kind of impacting that, versus the other two don't have as much restriction in that realm. So we're focusing on push data types, data sets, pardon me. Now, along with that, as you can imagine, the idea of pushing, so the idea is when the database receives new data, that pushes and it causes the refresh, the real-time experience of those dashboard tiles. So we need something to push the data into our streaming data set. And we're going to be leveraging Microsoft Flow, which in its most simple terms, as you can see here, is workflow automation. And there's a couple of different ways that we can do this, but as a core, you create a workflow automation which starts with a trigger. This could simply be an event, which is what we're going to use in our case. You could just have a button, which in the literal sense can actually be a button within the application. So maybe you go on the mobile device and click it. Or you can actually program this to have like an IoT device, like a physical button at your desk, and you click that, and whatever you've automated is going to happen, which is kind of funny to me. I enjoy that physical button piece. It's kind of interesting. Or you can schedule it. We're going to be doing an event-style trigger. We're going to be keeping an eye on certain events, and then when that occurs, it's going to kick off that flow. It's basically going to trigger it, and then all the actions that we have listed within there are going to take effect. So that's where we talk about actions. We're going to do two different styles, where we're going to take advantage of templates. And as you can see from the name of this, there's so many fun templates in Flow. We're going to use one that's going to take advantage of a template. And the first one we're going to create actually is going to be created from scratch. So we'll get both experiences. And if your funny bone just tickles a little bit and you get excited about what you see here, just remember we did one just last week, but there's other things we have on Microsoft Flow as well. Really fun technology. The only other piece that we're also going to explore that I don't have a slide for, just kind of like an extra special surprise, is we're going to tap into Azure, right? That was something I didn't list on the technologies for the poll question, but we're going to look and go into the Azure portal and take advantage of something known as cognitive services. So cognitive services has some really awesome features at our disposal, which users can take advantage of, like translation services, word sentiment analysis, these really cool things that we can take advantage of in Flow, and then we'll stream that information into our Power BI dataset, live updates right on our dashboards. So we're going to do two really fun, cool examples. Hopefully that leaves me a little bit of time at the end to kind of check out questions. I'm not going to be looking at questions through this process, through the demonstrations. So if you have a very specific question, maybe include the context behind that question so I can make sure I'm kind of lining that up just right. But this first piece there's going to be a little bit of there's going to be a little bit of participation here. So if you weren't ready for that, oh yeah, shake yourself up, because there is going to be a little bit of participation. So if you could, and as you see, there's a stop sign here, you can either click on this URL, which I am about to put in the chat. So let me do this real quick so everyone has this. Didn't copy. Give me 1 second. Let me copy this. Control copy. Okay, it decided to go twice, so I apologize, but both the links are in there. Or if you have a QR scanner, you can scan it, and I'll just sit on this page. It is a survey. It just has 3 questions. You don't fill it out just yet. Just leave it to the side in the background. I'll call when we want to bring that up, because that is going to feed our first example. So as everyone is submitting responses, we're going to see that is going to update live and populate some dashboard tiles that we're going to create. We're going to take advantage of some fun visuals in Power BI. So you should have this streaming survey available to you. If there's any issues, let me know. Crystal, just in case, let me know if you can get to that just fine. But yes, this is what we're going to be taking advantage of and leveraging within our very first example. So just as a refresher, this first one, we're going to create from scratch our data set. We're going to use Microsoft Flow as our trigger, which is going to be pushing data from our responses of that survey into our dashboards itself. That's how we're going to start. All right. So this is, I guess, the exciting part, right? Getting into the demos. So here I am, just presenting. I have a couple tabs. We're actually going to start in this regard. I'm going to start on the Flow side of things. Now we're going to move between Microsoft Flow and this example from Microsoft Flow over to Power BI, because we're going to need to create those respective data sets and everything. But for here, we're going to start by creating a brand new flow that's going to tap into Microsoft Forms, which is what you guys are looking at. You have Microsoft Forms. Flow has so many different types of connectors here. If we just click on this tab, this is just the most recent common. Trust me, there are tons and tons of connectors here. We're going to create something from scratch. So I'm just going to go to My Flows. I'm going to go ahead and just create a new one and hit Create from Blank. Now, just in case this is not a demonstration that's meant to be followed along, I'm just going to showcase these features. Once it's uploaded, you can pause it as you see fit, but I just want to showcase these features. Like I said, you'll have it later on, and I'm going to do a blog on this. So I'm going to create from blank. It reminds me again, hey, here's the most popular. But I'm just going to create from scratch. So I'm going to hit create from blank right here. So now this is the canvas. If you've never seen Flow, this is how we create this. And we are specified to start with a trigger. That's how we always begin. So what's nice is all our triggers and actions are listed below. Over on the top is more of like a filter by technology. So I'm going to go ahead and just type in forms. And this is going to limit me to a couple specific items here. Notice there's so many connection options. And I'm going to click Microsoft Forms. And this is going to limit me to what available triggers are at my disposal and potential actions later on. There's only one trigger, which makes it nice. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And it's going to create this. Now it's saying sign in to create a connection. I have single sign-on turned on, because I'm just using Office 365, and it's automatically signed me in and created this connection for me. If you ever need to look, if I hit the ellipsis, you can see it's done this, and it will show up in this connection section if I need to alter or change anything. But now I'm connected to my Microsoft Forms area, and when I hit this drop down, I'm going to have a choice of 2 different surveys, and the one that I provided to you guys is called Streaming Survey, as you guys see. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. This is how this works. It's going through, and now it's going to collect the information from this. It creates and stores everything, the details of what we're collecting in what's called an array. So we're going to take advantage of everything it's collected. We're going to use that in our follow-up actions. So we can see, all right, the trigger is when a new response is submitted for this specific survey. So that's my trigger. As soon as that happens, what do we want to occur? So I'm going to hit new step, and this is to choose an action. And I'm actually also going to do Microsoft Forms. So I'm going to click here, and we can see I actually only have one action here, but it's get response details. So the idea is get the answers for your responses. So whatever you guys put in, I want to get those, but I need to keep it organized. So if Crystal submits a form, I need to make sure I keep her 3 answers together, and we'll see how that's going to work out here. So I'm going to click get response details. It's put in there, and it's asking, okay, what's the form ID? And it's one you guys are working on. And then here's the interesting part. What's the response ID? The The response ID naturally is going to be specific for every submission. So you'll notice on the right, there's actually no options for me. When a new response is submitted, is that trigger? It's saying I don't see anything. But I click see more, we get a list of response notifications, which every response is going to give me 3 responses, 3 answers to those questions. So as soon as I click this, voila, it's actually created some new elements in here because of the logic that is occurring. Because it's creating a list, it's giving me, if it goes and triggers, and when it goes to look at what responses have been submitted, and maybe 5 of you had submitted it, that's going to be 5 different survey responses, with each having 3 responses that we need to keep organized. So it uses a for each loop container. That's basically what this is. It's called an apply to each, but it is a for each loop. So that's what's going on. It's going to grab my first response, go through, grab the IDs for those items, and now I'm left to say, well, okay, for each iteration, for each survey that I'm looking through and getting these answers, what do I need to do with it? We can't add this final action just yet because we haven't created our Power BI streaming data set. So I'm actually going to leave this right here. I'm not going to save. I'm just going to move to a different tab because I can't actually do anything on our final action, which is going to be pushing this to our Power BI data set. So let's actually create that. So I'm going to switch over. I have a tab here. It's just connected to the Power BI cloud service. You can see I've created a brand new workspace here. There's nothing in it. This is just a virtual environment ready to receive resources. Just think of it just as a virtual space, a container. And I have nothing, no dashboards, no reports, no workbooks, nothing. Just for you guys. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go through the process and create this. So while I'm here, as I mentioned, this is something we create in the cloud service. You can see I've just clicked my workspace and it brings us to this like landing page area. If you see this, you can just hit skip here because we're interested in the upper right where it says create. And when I hit create, you can see we have a couple of choices. What we're interested in is right here. This is going to be how we're going to be able to do any of the 3 data sets. You're going to see here's that screenshot. And we're interested, right, of course, in the one that says API. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next. And this is nice because it has a nice interface. It's going to have this UI where we create this. So what I'm going to do is for my data set name, I'm just going to call this streaming survey. And then we are left to dictate the metadata or the structure, the columns or the fields that we're going to be mapping. All right. So I need to specify here something that's user-friendly, naming convention, so it's very easy. Because in Flow, I'm going to see the questions, and I need to know where do I want to send the answer. So we need to be specific. We have 3 questions, so I need 3 fields here to do this. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm just going to call technology. All right, just like that. And you can see below, it's showcasing how it's expecting to receive this information. We don't really need to worry about that. This is the idea of an array, an object here. Flow is going to send it in this format, but it's looking for, if you were going to do this possibly in a manual way, it needs to receive, they say, an object called technology. And then when it finds that, it maps it, the relevant value is going to be used. So technology is my first question. The second question is going to be experience. All right, and I'm leaving the data types as text. That works for this example. And lastly, we're going to do location. All right, text, text, text. I'm good with that. And something really important, historic data analysis. Yes, I need that. I want that database created so I can keep history. So I'm going to toggle this on. I'm going to hit create. A second or 2, boom, it's already done. We can see now on the left-hand side here, I've got a streaming survey. It's my data set, and if I click on it, it just kind of has this look and feel as if it's Power BI. So what I'm going to do before we finish that Microsoft Flow, now that we have a data set, we can now create it and push the data to it. I'm actually going to create the visuals that we're going to stream to live. So we're going to do some very simple ones here. What we'll do is let's go ahead and I'm just going to create first a table. I'm just going to put a table here. And this is just going to contain all the information just so we can validate what's going on here. I'll probably come back and format this because right now we don't have any data at all. So as I put this in, let's say technology, experience, and location. I can do some small formatting, right? I'm gonna make this a little bigger so it's easier for people to see. Let's go with column headers. I'll push that up to 14 feels right. And then I'll also change the values here to a 14. And as data comes in, I'll probably come back in here and reformat this, but this is just about stylizing and those items. The main thing is we want to make sure we're getting the data in. A simple thing I do too to make things stand out, style. I'm going to do alternating rows real quick. And I know there's a totals line. I don't care about the totals line. I'm going to turn that off. So I've got a table. One of the questions is all about geography, so we got to do a map, right? A map's going to be awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and put this over here. Give us a little more room. Let's go half the screen. Do this for now. I can realign it in the dashboard. And what we'll do for location is let's go ahead and put that here, location in the location. For the legend, I'm going to go ahead and put the technology type, all right? And then for the size, what I'll do is I'll just do a count of the actual experience, just so we can get how many people per those items there is. So let's go ahead and put this for size. Nothing in there now, as we expect. That's okay. And lastly, I'm going to do something so we see a breakdown by technology, who's stating they have tiers of experience. So I'll just do a stacked column chart. We'll just do that. That's fine. I'll have this take up, let's say, half there. And let's make sure it's not on top of this one. All right. And let's go ahead and set this up so we have the technology and the axis. All right. For the legend, I'm going to put experience, and then we'll put, actually, that'll be fine here. We'll just leave those two items for that. So value of experience. So 3 visuals that we have set, feeding by this data set. This is only feasible because of the choice of the streaming data set we chose, the push. So I'm going to save this. This is my report. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as survey response. All right. We'll save that. So we've got now a report. We have this object, and I'm going to pin these to a dashboard. So remember, this right here, here's my pin live page option right here. This is not going to work. This would put all 3 out there. Yes, you can use interactive filtering and all that fun stuff, but it will eliminate the functionality. So we cannot use this. But what we can do is we can individually pin these objects, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to click that pin icon. For the dashboard itself, I'm just going to call this my survey. Oops, we got to spell it right. At least dashboard. All right. Pin that one. That's the map. Let's pin this table. I'm going to give my table a little more width because I think it's going to need it. I'm going to pin this one to the survey dashboard. And lastly, the stacked column. So let's just look at it. Let's get this set up the way we want. I'm going to rotate this. I'm going to make the map bigger over here just because it's a map. Everyone loves it. We'll put this up top, and I'll put this one like this. Just something. We're going to see how this appears. So this dashboard is now waiting. This is the key. This is what this is all about. And those other 2 data sets, right, the Azure streaming and the PubNub, the way you leverage it is actually here. You can see there's an add tile, and you have to use this custom streaming data. That's it. You can't use any of these visuals that we've just taken advantage of. So now, let me bring it up here just as a refresher. Go ahead and in this link, you should be able to fill out your surveys. Just pay attention to the bottom with Power BI for geographical data. Formatting is pretty critical. So you can see it's city, state format, but just fill out your info. Put that in, and we should see, as you guys go and start submitting this, information flowing into this. So if you guys want to have fun and a joke, no one could submit it, and I'll just be left standing in the dark. Oh, wait, you know what? If you haven't submitted it, stop right there. If you did, that's okay. If you haven't, stop real quick. What are we thinking? We haven't even set up, we set the trigger, but I haven't written anything. My goodness, I got excited. So if you submitted, don't worry. If you want to resubmit something else, you can. Let's actually push the data that this trigger is going to find into the data set. Silly me. So I'm going to hit add action. I'm going to type Power BI here. There's only a simple option. Now, it should be noted that this is a preview option. There's options in Flow called preview, and there's some called experimental. When it's experimental, it's very much volatile as far as subject to being changed. So be very wary if it says experimental. I wouldn't put anything in production like that. But preview is usually pretty safe, thinking it's going to come into this format. It's going to be like this when it's GA. But it is in preview, so I'm going to go ahead and select it. And single sign-on. I've done many things with Power BI, so it already has my login info. So it's saying what workspace. I'm going to point to the workspace that we've been working in, the one I created called Streaming Demo. There's only one data set, Streaming Survey. And remember, database created in the background. So real-time data, that's what it's called. And it fetched the metadata, the structure of what we created. Remember, technology, experience, location. Now, what's left for me to do is to leverage the objects within the array that have been captured right here. So as soon as I click technology, this is what I love about Flow, you get this nice dynamic content. So from the actual get response details right here, these are all the things that I can take advantage and leverage. There's a couple extras, the responders email and that stuff, but we only want 3. So for technology, I'm going to map to acquire the answer from this one. Which BI technology most interested in learning? Okay. Experience, we're going to go ahead and map it to this one here on the selected one. Okay. And location, that one is where are you from? So I've got the respective responses mapped to my streaming data set. So now when I hit save, it's going to give it a generic name for this, which is fine by me. A little quirky thing, I just saved it clearly, but when you back out of your flows, it always asks you, hey, make sure you saved. But here, the flow is set and done. The trigger is now ready. We can see up in the right, the flow is on. So now I jumped the gun. If you want to, you can submit some items here. So I'm going to say I want to see more on Power Apps. I'm going to do one of my own. Oh, I don't even have, this is the form itself. Let me go over to this dashboard. Oh my goodness, you guys are hitting it hard. But you can see this is going to continue to update. So this is going to continuously keep occurring. We can see all these dots. Ooh, look at all the information here on the right in Europe. And you can see because we have it split, we're having different experiences. The size of the item is for counts. Fun locations. Let's see what we got over here. Oh, Bulgaria. Whoa. So this is just going to continue. The flow is on, and we can go back here, and if I refresh this, you can actually see each individual run in succession. So this is just going to keep going, and our dashboard is live. But here's the important thing. I go back to the actual reports. Look at my report, because this is how it's done. This is how it's leveraged. The report is leveraging a database, which we need to set up a refresh. So if I click refresh, bam, now we're at where we're at, but it's not going to update automatically. It is the dashboard itself that is going to continuously be updating and moving and shaking. And because we have the historical analysis, it's just going to keep it there. So pretty fun stuff. Pretty fun stuff. I always find it so interesting. This is just something else that now you can have for your users. You can be entertained with it. Of course, the one thing is I put this table here. When you're using a dashboard, you might be familiar. Obviously, you can't. I don't have the capability of scrolling through this dashboard. You don't have interactivity when you click on these tiles, but when you click on the tile, it takes you to the report where then you can scroll. So I wouldn't say, a table is probably not the best option because I can't do much. It's just showing these beginner ones, the entry level. So pretty fun, pretty neat, and that is your first view at a streaming data set. So hopefully that was pretty exciting, a little bit of flow in there. And trust me, there's so much more we can do here. And we are going to do another demonstration. So what I'll do is this one is going to revolve around social media, right? So this day and age with Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, comments, anything, right? It's all about knowing and understanding what's going on. How are people talking about my organization? So the idea of sentiment analysis is very large, huge. These large organizations, they're always doing this type of big data sentiment analysis. So we're going to do a scoped demonstration version of this that we can go into and explore. We're going to tie into Twitter. I kind of showcased there was a Twitter source. So we're going to tie into that so that we can receive new tweets based off of certain tags. I'll let you guys have a little bit of, if anyone's following along, this is where you can have like a little bit of freedom with it. I'm going to put some specific hashtags, but you can do whatever you want. We are going to use a Microsoft Flow template. And as part of that template, we're going to dive into an Azure Cognitive Service. Really cool stuff. So we're going to actually go into the Azure portal itself. Oh, look at this. I'm wondering if someone's playing games or if someone is actually from here. I like it though. I like it. Testing me out. But is that real? I gotta check. Sorry, one second. We're gonna have fun together because that is something else. No way. Is there something in there? So there is. My goodness. Well done. Applaud to you. Applaud to you. So This is pretty good around, when it comes to geography, we have a whole section on Power BI when we talk about ambiguity of data. Looks like these marks are doing a pretty darn good job. Live streaming data set, but, right, when you do Chile, it just kind of puts a generic dot inside of the country itself. It doesn't specify, but it still works, right? It's using Bing in the background. So pretty fun, pretty cool stuff. But let's swing over to the next example, sentiment analysis. This time around, we'll start here since we're in the service, and we'll create our data set first. So as before, we're going to create a new data set. I'm going to create it in this same workspace. So I'm going to click streaming demo, just the workspace, to get back to this landing area. And I'm going to say create streaming data set, the same as we've done before. And I'm going to use the push data set using that REST API. And this one, let's go ahead and call this streaming tweets. Streaming tweets. The value, this is that structure, right? We're going to be capturing a score, which is going to be represented from a scale of 0 to 1. The closer to 1 means it's a good tweet. The closer to 0 means a bad tweet. So you're looking at like 0.1s, 0.89s, things like that. If it's usually, and we'll see it's reiterated to us when we go into flow, but when it falls into the realm between 0.7 and 0.3, so if it's above 0.3, below 0.7, that's generally considered more of a neutral tweet. And that's just done by that cognitive service, this score evaluation. So because it's a number, we're going to switch this data type from score. I'm going to switch it from a text. We're going to switch it to a number. You can see it displays it in that array below. I'm also going to grab the tweet text. We'll leave it as text. I'm going to get the tweet date. All right. And we'll change this. There's a date time. There's only 3 data types, text, number, date, time. And then lastly, we're going to grab the user. Basically the username, so I'm going to leave that as text. So we can see the array. Yes, I want historic data analysis. So we're looking good. I'm going to hit create. Take a second. There it is already. And I'm going to go ahead and just as before, let's just create a very simple display, some simple visuals here. So let's go here. This one's having fun with me real quick. Let me look here. Make sure there's no odd notification. I'm gonna refresh. It's a little odd UI thing. It's not letting me click on the data sets. Oops. Interesting. I may have not clicked it. Let me see if there's an odd notification here. Nothing about it. I'm going to recreate my data set real quick. Pardon me. So let's go here. See if it shows up. No, it's not there. So I'm going to create my streaming data set again. Streaming tweets. All right, score. That's going to be a number. Tweets text. Tweet date. That's date time. And then user. Historic analysis. Create. Make sure there's no error. Interesting. Okay. Done. Yeah. Odd thing, oddities. Got to do it. It's always got to happen in the live demo. So let's just create some very simple visuals here, nothing too crazy. So we have something when we're going to do this. So as always, I'm just going to create a table here. And since it's streaming data, there's going to be a fair amount of tweets. I'm going to have this kind of take up this whole quadrants. I'm going to definitely have to reformat this and set for word wrapping. But for now, I'm going to let's just do the tweet date, text, user, and then score. Let me increase that size real quick. I can at least do that. Let's go with I'm going to go with 14 for that. And I'm going to switch the values to 14 as well. Okay. And then I am going to do the style. I'm going to turn it to alternating rows also. And since there's a score value there, it's going to try to total it. We don't need the total for that. That's one. We got a table. Like I said, I'm going to do some formatting on that later. Let's also grab, I could do a line chart or an area chart. So I'm just going to do this little area chart. Put it to halfway through. And I'm going to put the tweet date in here. And then the average score. So So let's click this. It's doing the sum. I want the average score. So it's basically going to give us a timeline of all the tweets that are happening at that one moment. What's the average of them all at that moment? Is everyone talking good? Is everyone talking bad? Neutral? What's the deal? And then lastly, what we can do is I'm going to add in 2 card visuals, right? Nice, simple displays. And what I'll do for this card visual, I don't need much real estate for this, is I'm going to have it display our average score overall for all tweets. So I'm going to put the score in here, and let's do average. And then I'll do a second one. We'll do a second card here. Let's line it up so it matches there. All right. And this one actually is kind of large and in charge too. All right, there we go. And this one is going to capture, I'm just going to do the tweet text. It's just a count of it. So our count of tweets, our average scores, our whole table, and then a timeline. Doesn't look good, right? We don't have any data right now, but let's save this report. So I'm going to just go ahead and save this. I'm going to call this we'll just call this tweets. A little delay on my keyboard there. All right, now that we have that, I'm going to pin these items to a new dashboard. We could pin it to the old dashboard, but I just want this to take up the whole screen. So I'm going to pin this. I'm going to make a new dashboard. I'm going to call this just streaming tweets. All right. I'm going to pin this one, streaming tweets. Let's pin this guy. Now, I can't remember if I pinned the table already, so I'm going to take a quick look. Table. So I'm missing average score, the counts. All right, so let me just go back and get the counts. All right, perfect. And now I'm going to reorganize this. We'll give this a little more room. That kind of almost went wild there. I'll put this down here, and I actually have seen this one, so I'm going to actually make this table a little bit wider. All right, so we'll do that. This is waiting to receive. So I can go ahead now, back to Microsoft Flow, and start our new flow. So here, if we go, we can see here's the one that's created. If people are still putting responses in there, it's still going. It's still working. It's putting into the database. If I go to the dashboard, it's updated, I promise. But what we can do then is we can have a little bit of fun here. We're going to actually use a template for this next one. So templates usually are pretty good, and even if you need more than what the template gives you, this is at least a really great starting point. So you can just start a template, and then you can customize it. It's actually something we're going to have to do here, because I've noticed a little bit of odd behavior with that preview Power BI right to dataset. When used within the template, it actually adds in an additional field in the array that causes an error. So I'll showcase that so you can see it. But I'm going to search here in my templates. There is a ton. Power BI, and you can see there's a ton of stuff here. And we're going to do this one. Run sentiment analysis on tweets and push results to a Power BI dataset. So when I click on this, it brings me to a sample, just reminding you that Twitter is the trigger. Then we're going to take the following actions. It's going to do sentiment analysis, and then it's going to push it to a Power BI dataset. And it tells you and reminds you here all the fun stuff. Now, there's a ton that comes back from Twitter, too. There also are some small limitations here. There's polling that happens every 60 seconds. That's something that is just built in. And also, depending on your subscription and what you have available to you and how we set up the text analysis, the cognitive service also will have a limitation of runs per month. So if you spend more money, you get more runs and so on and so forth. But we'll see that because I'm going to create that cognitive services right here in this call. So you can see Power BI, we've used Twitter. It already has this, but I don't have text and analytics. Now, I can tell you right now, I can't do create right now because that service doesn't exist. So I'm going to go to Azure first. I'm going to go to the Azure portal and create this in my Azure environment. So a new little place. So I got a little tab here. I'm just in Azure. Like I said, if you're unfamiliar with this is a fantastic feature. There's just so many services here. It's slightly overwhelming. But we're focusing on this one here, cognitive services, as you can see. And there's a lot of really cool things here. Now, right now, within the organization, so in Pragmatic Works, we do have an active one that Devin's actually using. Devin Knight has a Power App that he's using live and in person while he's training today. It's a Power App that uses his camera's phone. It takes a picture of a business card. It uses this kind of translation service, this cognitive service, to take the image. It gets converted, and then it extracts the text from the business card and automatically writes it to an Excel or a SQL database. So it reads, it's a business card reader. Pretty fun, pretty neat. So he's using that. So I am not going to delete it. It would be funny though. And we're going to say add. And there's a lot of different items in this area. But what I'm interested in, if I start typing text, is the text analytics. So by clicking that, we can see this is what we're looking for. I'm going to go ahead and select it, which is going to bring up a blade to create it. And I'm going to do it. I'm not going to go too much into this explanation. Just know that we're actually going to be, we have quite a few Azure classes on on-demand learning, and we're actually going to be pushing a lot more out, and you should see a lot of content coming out in the future. So for the name of this, I'm just going to call it sentiment. Oh, I can't put spaces here. Analysis. I'm going to use this description. Pricing tier, I'm going to do the lowest just for this demonstration, and that's fine. So I'm just going to hit create. It's going to take a moment to provision this, and we're going to see there's going to be a notification up top, which is going to let us know when it's done. Pretty lightweight service, so it should happen relatively quickly, but we actually need to access it because you're going to see when we create this text analytics connector, there are some key items that we need. So here, it's now been created. You can see the notifications let me know. Here's sentiment analysis. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to wait. I'm going to come back in a second. Actually, I'll copy one of the things I need. This URI, I'm going to grab its endpoints. And if we go back to flow, when I hit create, it's going to go through this process. You can see it's saying, what's the connection name? This is specific to Microsoft Flow, not what I've named that cognitive service. So I can call this whatever I want. I am going to call it the same, but just know it's not bound by anything like that. It's a friendly name for this connector. So doing sentiment analysis, I have the root site, so that's what I copied, but it also needs an account key. So I'm going to go here, and you can see at the top, generally this is something you want to kind of keep private and hidden. It's access to the API. It's all right. I just built this from scratch, and I'm going to delete it afterwards, but this is how you access it. So I'm going to just grab this key. I'm going to pop it in the account key because it's going to access it that way, and I'm going to hit create. Hopefully we get a little green check mark here. Voila. And we can hit continue. So I'm going to go ahead and select this. It's now, because we're using a templates, bam, has created this. Not the most complex, but like I said, I can add to this, remove it. But something that's really important here is I've noticed that here at the bottom, you can see it already has this real-time data input here, and an issue arises from this. I'll leave it for now just so you can see what occurs, but we're going to end up deleting this and just re-adding it ourselves. It's a little bit of odd behavior, but it could be because it's in preview. But yeah, we'll see it here in a moment. So let's go one by one. When a new tweet is posted, that is our trigger. Using the default values for parameters, well, this is where if you're following along or if you're watching this later, you can have some freedom. This is basically saying search for a new tweet when a tweet is posted based off of certain criteria. So I'm going to just do a couple of hashtags. So I'm going to do hashtag, we'll just do Power BI. And now this is only going to capture tweets from the moment that we save this, flow, from that moment forward, it's going to capture this. We'll notice there's going to be some oddities, what's going to seem like oddities in the created time for the tweet. It does return this in UTC. So, I mean, that's like ahead, I want to say like 5 hours from where I'm at. So I'm going to do Power BI. I'm going to do, I'm going to do a big one here, Microsoft. All right. And I'll just do 3. Let's do also Pragmatic Works. All right, so 3 of these. So if anyone wants to, once we've created this flow, once I'm done in this set, if you want to throw a tweet out with any or all of these hashtags, the or doesn't make it all inclusive, right? It's important. This is going to be individual use case. So if it contains any of these items, it can leverage this. So we can go ahead and I'm going to leave that. I'm going to close it. The sentiments. The only thing that we have to do here in the sentiments is edit the language. So it's already grabbing the body. All right, the tweet text from the array from above, it's going to grab the tweet text, and that's what's going to be analyzed. And we want to make sure that this is evaluated in the English language. I can't remember the supporting number of languages here, but it's a lot. So I've got that set. Let's go ahead now. And this is where I'm going to show you. It's going to cause a bit of an issue, but when I go and choose my workspace like normal, streaming demo, all right, I'm going to choose the data sets, streaming survey. And you'll notice it's brought in this item called payload, an additional element that is unnecessary, and we're not going to have anywhere to map this in our streaming data set. It's unnecessary. So this is where it causes the issue. So I don't need to go any further. I'm actually going to delete this itself, and I'm just going to add it back in. That's all. It's, for some reason, just with the template, causes that issue. So I'm going to grab this add rows from Datasets. It's the exact same thing, but notice the real live table, the table is not listed yet, and I think that has to do with the issue. So I'm going to pick the same things we just did. Oh, I need to make sure it's streaming tweets too. And real-time data, and now we're going to get what we need. All right. So like always, dynamic content, I can hit score, and from what we want is we want the score that comes from this detect sentiments. Notice that here on the right, it's not giving me that. If I hit see more though, there it is, and it reminds us and it tells us, it's kind of tiny, but return to decimal between 0 and 1, denoting sentiments above 7, usually positive, below 3, normally negative, and in between, it's neutral. So that's what I want. I want the score. The tweet text, I just need to find that under here for dynamic content. So we're going to find tweet text. Notice all of this is coming from the array. All of this has been captured in this when a new tweet is posted. So there's a lot more that we could have collected here. Really fun stuff here. Tweet text. Let's go with tweet date. It's just going to be created at. This is what's going to be returned in UTC. And then lastly, I have a couple options for user. I'm going to choose name, but there's also a username. Actually, I'm going to go down here at the very bottom. There is a username. I think that was a little shorter. And now I'm going to hit save. This is given a name. I'm going to back out of this. It warns me, but it's there. And we can see it's just waiting to execute. Now, this does execute every 60 seconds. So there is like a poll timer, but if you wanted to throw a tweet out there, you could. But we're going to wait here, and we should see momentarily. And with the hashtags I put, there actually should be quite a few tweets that come in. So we're just going to sit here. We're going to all make it as awkward as possible. But we should see something populate here. So this is the moment. If you'd like, go ahead and throw any tweet out, throw any of those hashtags in there. We should see this come through. Now, what I could do, I might ruin the surprise here, but I want to make sure I'm going to refresh this, because sometimes you want to check the flow, make sure everything's working, that there's no errors. That's good. Haven't seen any errors there. And I'm just going to wait. Like I said, polling is one of the limitations there. And there is, like I mentioned, the limitations within the sentiment analysis area as also, just because I'm using that lowest tier. So give this a moment. Oh, okay, there we go. And let me see. Let's see if there we go. I don't know. Let's see what that is. I'm going to click on this so we can go to the table. This is what I meant. I knew I'd have to do some formatting elements, so I'm going to fix this real quick. I'm going to consolidate some of this action because this is looking funky. I'm going to word wrap that because I don't need it. Let's word wrap this because I want this all to kind of be in one screen. That's a bit much, but all right, now I've got this, and you can see some scores. Thank you, Keith, CA 5843220. Oh, it's showing it as neutral. Interesting, right? It has rocks in it, you'd think, but this is something. It's just sentiment analysis. So let me save this. I'm actually going to re-push this. I'm going to pin this out to that visual. There's going to be more when we get out there, trust me. I'm going to get rid of this one. Oh, good. It's already there. Awesome. So we can see 6 tweets. Like I said, there is a polling cycle here, but eventually this is going to just keep acquiring and collecting tweets. So I'll leave this up in the background as it's going. But yeah, so some positive stuff here. Nice one. Oh, what the heck? That was me. I forgot I set that to automatically do it. But we can see that one I was testing 0.99. Good is in there. I wanted to throw some keywords just to check it out. 0.87. Easier. This is actually an underlying service, so that's happening with cognitive services, and you really don't have actually that much control over what is being scored or not. So there is something that's out of your possession, but this is one of those things where you now have this data. Remember, it's dropping into a database, and you can do additional cleansing on top of this, but this is going to work for us. This is just going to continue. I'm just going to refresh this to make sure everything's looking good. Yeah, it's just going through. Let me leave this up here though. Let me get rid of this tile. We should see this one's a little better looking. And this is just going to continue. So 13.75. You can see there's a little bit of lull. Not many people tweeting right now. But yeah, this is going to be it. So what I'll do, I'm going to leave this open as it continues to kind of move and swing around. I am going to grab Just gonna see if there's any questions. My goodness, there's a couple. Let me just kind of extend this out, make it a little bigger for my eyeballs. All right, let's take a look here. Is it possible to use Microsoft Flow to pull data from Salesforce and build a streaming report? Yes. Answer is yes to you. Absolutely. There's actually some built-in templates in Flow for, oops, I didn't mean to do that. There's some built-in items here with actually Power Apps. There's connectors in Power BI and Flow that you can have access to. So you can just kind of go in there and access this, but you see CRM. Not sure why it's not showing me my Salesforce stuff, but there's a lot of stuff here for Salesforce. So there's one question. That's all right. Someone apologized for input of data. Is there a way to use on-site SQL Server as a source for the push data set? So remember the one thing with the push data set, right? So the push data set that we're using, it is based off of REST API. So you can find a ton of documentation on how this is doing. What we saw as a sample when creating that data set was how it needs to receive that, right? It's looking for an array that is being returned in that format. So you can stream data from anything effectively to that data set. All you need to do is have the workspace information and the data set name, and you can push it. So from a custom perspective, you can pretty much stream anything to this data set. That's why the push one has a lot of easy access. Now, PubNub has some capabilities too. And you also saw, of course, there's Azure streaming data sets. So if you're leveraging some Azure technologies, you could do that too. So that's kind of the question there, which was, is there a way to use on like a SQL on-prem SQL DB to do this? So in that regard, you'd have to use a custom approach to make a REST API call to push that data to it, but you could. GarageBand name, I like it. Let's see what else. If you don't keep historical, it's just not going to, it's going to basically keep it over a cache only. So it doesn't have that historical retention. So you lose that capability. It's effectively now mimicking what you would do with a streaming data set. Honestly, I think it should be on by default. Some people catch me when I almost didn't pick streaming tweets. All right. Good. A couple people caught me. Does the trigger in a flow have to be a pounds? Oh, so specifically for Twitter. No, you do not have to use a pound sign. You can use keywords. Notice in the beginning it populated, I think it was Power BI in there by default. You can do a lot of things. I think there's one limitation. I'm trying to remember the specifics, but if you do an @ username, there is some slight limitation there. But what's interesting is just in case, you can always go in here, like let's go to the flow. This is really cool. Let's go to this one in particular, right? If I go into my flow and I edit it, any one of these transforms, you can actually go into, and where did they hide the, oh, here, see this little I? If I do this and hit learn more, I get brought to all the straight up documentation of it, which kind of breaks it down. You can see it's showing the limitations, restrictions right here, what it's looking at, what gets brought back if you're using it as an action, right? We used it as a trigger. So if we go down to triggers, we can see this is how it's working. This is what gets returned, the formats. You can see search term, happy hour, hashtag haiku from this. I remember there's some limitation there on that, but everything in there is awesome because it brings you to this fantastic level of like granular detail of knowing how to use it. It's pretty awesome. So is the Twitter streaming coming from what data from your Twitter? I mean, the connection itself is leveraging mine. So if there's any sort of private individuals that only let their tweets be seen by kind of like followers or following, it's correct. I'm not going to see it. That connection is using my account. But anything that's public, which lists those key hashtags, it's going to pick up. Can you set up an image dynamically based on the average score of the tweets? Sure, yeah, that's just going a little bit further into Power BI specifically because now you're doing some conditional logic. Remember, this is a database, so you can connect to this, you can create visuals, and then from there, we can just have some condition. If it falls within this range, then it could be this. If it falls within this range, it could be a smiley face, sad face, or neutral. You could. Now you're just really just extending. Because it's data stored in a database, the sky's the limit. It's really fun. Do you know an easy way to delete all the records for the historic database behind the push dataset, or is it only through the REST API? Correct. If you want to kind of clean that out, you'd have to use REST API. Unfortunately, there's not an easy way to achieve that. I'm hoping that functionality kind of gets a more UI interface. Let me see, getting near to the end here. Can a dataset be deleted and repopulated using Flow when a Excel file is saved? That one, I just have to look at that a little more for you, Scott. Like I said, I do a blog and usually answer questions I couldn't get to. So let me look at that one a little more in depth. It does grab, there is a limitation. Like on this limitation, you can see when we use it. Let me see where the heck it is. API call rate limit for posts, 600 per hour. I don't even, let's see what we're at right now. So the tweets at 33 right now. So it's just kind of moving up. I should have organized this to show the recent ones. This is showing the latest one. So if we went over here and looked, we can see what's going on with the most recent ones. So I'm assuming this is in our class here. I got SQL, so looks like that was just kind of trickling in here. Like I said, UTC though, there's a difference in time there. All right, there is a couple more questions, so don't worry. We keep these questions, we log them, so I'll go through them. Anything I haven't looked at, I'll look to put those on a Q&A on that blog itself. So make sure you check that out. Once again, that's going to be SQL Recon. I'll put my information up real quick again, so you have it. So there's my blog there, Twitter, and email. Also, don't forget, like Crystal put up in the beginning, this is going to be recorded, so you guys can freeze frame this later, but that's my contact info. But don't forget also that right now, 50% off everything. And if you're looking to do more training, you want to better yourself, and you want to improve your skill set in any of these, or Azure, Power Apps, Flow, Logic Apps, Power BI, analysis services, my gosh, I could go breathless just talking about how much we have on this platform. There's no coupon code, there's no message across the board. Check out the website, on-demand learning. We've got everything, and I'm going to be working along with Mitchell, Devin, and we're going to be putting out some awesome Azure stuff this month. I'm redoing Azure Data Factory. We're doing a whole course around an Azure workshop, the whole kind of concept and idea, data warehouse. My goodness. I'm excited, so hopefully you guys are too. I have the information. A lot of you guys looking for more Power BI stuff, so definitely stay tuned. If this is your first Tuesday, make sure you keep coming back. It's a free hour. It is going to be posted up on the website, so look for that. Crystal, just real quick, do you know what's the turnaround on that? When it'll be up?
It should be up before the end of the day on the website, but they won't receive the link until tomorrow, about noon tomorrow.
Okay, so keep an eye. It's going to be there so you can watch this. I know I don't think it went crazy speed, but I wanted to make sure we saw everything and could entertain some questions. So check it out tomorrow. You can slow it down. You can go through those examples. Every technology we touched, you can sign up for an account. You can get set, and you can work through these items. So go right ahead. Enjoy it. Once again, so thank you so very much for joining me today. And I think I squeaked it a minute and a half over lunchtime. But the day is yours, guys. I hope you guys enjoy, and I appreciate you greatly.
Thank you so much, Manuel. And like Manuel said, you guys will receive a link tomorrow in your email, and it will be up on our site today before the end of the day. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or Manuel. And yes, please check out the 50% off on the training. It's good stuff, guys. All right, thank you, and have a great day.